Hey guys, this is Glorious Fruit back at another episode review, episode 6, episode named Kin. So, in the beginning of the episode, it pans out on where Henry is pointing a gun at Joel. This is after he kills Sam because Sam wasn't infected, he became infected, and then he ends up pointing a gun at himself and shoots himself. And so, the next scene is 3 months later after that. It shows a man after hunting walks in his own home. Joel's pointing at a gun at him, and this is kind of a funny scene. And I'll show this right now.
Now, 2 fingers only, put it out of reach. Why did you shoot him?
The gun's all the way over there. He didn't hurt me, by the way.
Yeah, I got eyes.
And so after this funny scene, which is probably something to break away, just a little bit from the seriousness that this show gives, Joel brings him a map showing of where could possibly an area where people would be held at, and he asks if he knows who Tommy is, where he ever heard the name Tommy. The man says no, and it's just a little small funny scene.
We're somewhere here. Exactly where? And your answer better be the same as your wife's. You telling the truth?
Yeah?
Are you telling me the truth?
Yeah?
And then there's this other part where Joel is having a panic attack, and this is basically a part of him where he's dealing with the deaths he has to like carry on, starting with starting with Sarah, and then Tess, and I guess you can include Bill and Frank, and then I don't know how much of an impact it could have been, but maybe Henry and Sam as well.
Joel, are you okay? Joel?
Shut up.
You shouldn't dying?
Okay. I'm fine.
No, but are you? It's just a reminder that if you're dead, I'm fucked.
I'm fine.
And so the next scene is where Joel and Ellie are camping outside. Joel is supposed to take first watch, but they're talking about what they'll do after Joel takes Ellie to the Fireflies. And Joel mentioned of having a farm where he can take care of a herd of sheep, the ones that would actually listen to him. And then Ellie mentions that she wants to go in outer space and mentions her favorite astronaut, which I'll have a clip of that now.
Buzz Aldrin, Jim Lovell, but you know who my favorite is?
Sally Ride.
Sally fucking Ride. Best astronaut name ever.
And so after that, Joel was awake from his first part of the watch, but he fell asleep on his second part of the watch, where Ellie was doing that part, and Joel didn't like that. But what can you do in a world where there's infected and people who've gone bad? And so eventually they move on through the snow and then made it to this dam where it's basically just an Easter egg from the game, where they do need to cross a river. So Joel had to solve this puzzle of how to bring like some kind of bridgeway from one side to the other, and he used a dam for that because Ellie can't swim. She mentioned this once in the show, and so I guess instead of having that in the show, they just have this as an Easter egg. And so they were at gunpoint with a bunch of people holding rifles on their hands. And so Joel has this, I guess you can say, another moment of a panic attack where can he protect Ellie from them? And so they bring out a dog, which I have a scene for that, where basically the dog is able to sniff out who's infected and who's not. And so he sniffs Joel, he's fine. And then his biggest worry is what will the dog react to Ellie, because she's been bitten twice already. And so he has that fear of he won't be able to protect her. But nothing happens, and I have that clip.
Like I said, we'll just move on.
And so now they walked inside of not walked they rode on a horse into Jacksonville, and where I don't know why I call it Jacksonville, it's called Jackson, the town. Joel finally meetups with Tommy. They have their tender moment, and so moving on to the next scene where they have this awkward moment where Joel and Ellie are eating, finally having a like an actual meal for the first time in a long while, and you have here Tommy who's married to Mariah, and he does tell Joel that he's married to Mariah, and where this brings another awkward part of the scene where Ellie had to tell him to congratulate them in their marriage, and then Ellie pretty much tells this girl to like shoo screw off, but in a much more meaner way. And this is supposed to be an Easter egg of The Last of Us 2, where this is supposed to be like Ellie's love interest. Spoilers, but yeah, there's that. Just a small scene, and so this doesn't happen in the game. In the game, you just mostly see yourself spending some time with Tommy and fighting off some raiders, which is more spoilers. Sadly, there's no raiders or any fights that happen in Jackson, and where I think it's just for the sake of the game, where you have a bit of dialogue, and then you go back to pew pew time. Whereas in the show, they took more time of Joel having his bonding moment with Tommy without any interruptions, and so here's a little sign saying "Welcome to Jackson." Joel and Ellie get a tour of the town from Tommy and Mariah.
Houses, livestock, all shared. Collective ownership. So, communism. Nah, it ain't like that.
It is that, literally. This is a commune. We're communists. No way. That's our newest one. Couple months old. You want a pet? Yeah, what's your name?
And there's this next scene where Tommy and Joel have their own private moment, where Tommy's asking how are things with Tess. Tess is fine. He basically lied to her, and then he mentions that his job is to take Ellie to the Fireflies because she's some big time Firefly person. And then Joel had this proposition where he would want to take Tommy with him so they can deliver Ellie to the Fireflies and make this quicker and more safer and better. And Tommy kind of denies, not kind of, but he actually denies Joel this proposition. Joel asks why, and then after beating around the bush, Tommy finally reveals that Mariah is pregnant. I'm probably saying her name wrong. I'll probably have it on the screen here somewhere if I said it wrong. And it got to the point where Tommy was wondering if he'll be a good enough father for the upcoming baby, and Joel just in his response was like, "I guess we'll find out." And Tommy took it the wrong way, and in some ways, I guess Joel was salty about that just because he lost his daughter from the beginning of the episode, the beginning of the outbreak, and it is at this point where instead of congratulating his brother, he has this salty response. Joel looks out of the conversation. They left it better in a bitter way. Joel has this panic attack, and he has this moment where he sees someone in the back where it resembles Sarah, her hairstyle and whatnot. And then there's like this glimmer of hope, like, is this Sarah or some thing like that? And he sees her hugging his child, and then I guess it could be a way of where Joel was like, this could have been Sarah. At this point, she's an adult, or she could have already a child already. And then there's this next scene where Ellie, after taking a shower, where the room is, I guess, supposed to be like, not I guess, but like it's supposed to be kind of an Easter egg that they recreated, where in the game, after Joel and Tommy fight off some of the raiders, they have their conversation. Tommy agrees to take up on Joel's offer on taking Ellie to the Fireflies, and Ellie booked it. she finds herself in this abandoned home. She's hanging out in that abandoned home, and that's where they have in Jackson this same home, the same room, but just not abandoned. And so Ellie and Tommy's wife have this their moment while they're cutting their hair. Mariah noticed that Ellie is noticed like the memorial for the two kids that were lost. One named Kevin, that was Mariah's son. The other one is Sarah, where she eventually finds out that that was Joel's daughter, and he lost her from the outbreak. And so there's this next scene where Ellie is with a bunch of kids watching a movie. She seems like she's out of place, not wanting to be there. Tommy sneaks out and finds, Joel trying to fix his shoes after all their adventures and whatnot. And then Joel finally opens up that Ellie's immune to the infected, that she's like he already witnessed her being bitten, and that she does not turn after a few weeks. And then I have this scene right here where he kind of, breaks down in front of Tommy.
You think I can still handle things, but I'm not who I was. I'm weak. Lately, there are these moments where the fear comes up out of nowhere, and my heart feels like it stopped.
And so, after finally opening up into himself, expressing how he felt after through all the adventure he went through, he finally opens up that Tess is actually dead, and he feels like that he will fail Ellie eventually. It's to the point where it's luck that they're still alive, and that it would be better if Tommy took her to the Fireflies instead of himself. And there's this battle that he has in his own mind that he'll fail Ellie just like he failed others before. And then it goes to this next scene where Ellie's reading a diary, where it's just another Easter egg where Ellie's reading a diary when Joel finally goes to this abandoned home that she was in and tries to have a conversation with her and like, hey, don't do this ever again. And so basically she reads the diary, and the diary just mentions that like all the worries of the teenager before the outbreak. And then they get into the conversation of basically like, did you ever cared about me? And then Joel says, yes, I do care about you, and it's better off that you go with Tommy instead of with me, Joel. And there's this whole scene that I have.
Has either died or left me. Everybody fucking except for you! So don't tell me that I'd be safe with somebody else, because the truth is, I would just be more scared.
Ellie finally expresses that herself that she's gone through some losses, because Joel in his first response he's like, you have no idea what loss is, and Ellie's like, yes, I know what exactly that is. And then like like I'm not Sarah. And then that's when she ends up going on mighty thin ice, and Joel's like, yeah, you're not my daughter and I'm not your dad. And then there's this next scene where poor screenshot, but it was also the scene where it was supposed to be like kind of a blurry memory, like to signify that Joel still barely remembers the times that Sarah was alive, and it was like them decorating a tree. And then the next morning, Joel is already have a saddle ready for a horse, and this is when Tommy and Ellie were walking to this horse stable, and Joel finally mentions that, okay, I never given you a choice, do you want to go with Tommy or me, but you're better off with Tommy to go to the Fireflies. And then Ellie immediately chose Joel, where this is different because in the game, after all the pew pew events that you go through some more when Joel and Tommy finally find Ellie in this abandoned home. And after they fight off some more raiders, Joel's like, he made up his mind. He's going to take Ellie to the Fireflies somewhere in some university, which they mentioned in the show, but I'll forget. I already forgot. I'll probably have it somewhere in the video here. And then they move on forward. And then there's this next scene where I guess it's just a moment where Joel is teaching Ellie how to shoot, and she's a terrible shot with the rifle. And then there's this moment where Joel talks about his work, that he used to be a contractor before the outbreak, and he would build homes and stuff like that. And then they finally made it to the university, and they're now looking forward to fireflies. They finally made it to a post where there's no fireflies. I also forgot to mention that they find monkeys, which is also another Easter egg, where in the university there's basically monkeys scattered around the university, and basically they tested the virus or the infection on monkeys, and just to find a cure. Spoilers, it never worked out. And so I guess this is some way they did the same thing here, but just never mentioned in the show. They never found the fireflies. They did find a map that all points to Salt Lake City. So I guess the different firefly camps that either made it or didn't make it, they all go back to Salt Lake City. There's now raiders around the university. Joel and Ellie make a quiet escape, but one did come at them, and there's this scene right here. And so after Joel's big owie on his side got stabbed from the bat, they make their escape. There's this scene where Joel's bleeding out. Ellie's making sure that none of them are behind them, that they made it out safely. And then there's this scene here where Joel finally drops down, and then Ellie is in a panic, and I'll show that right now.
I don't know where the fuck I'm going, what the fuck I'm gonna do. Joel.
And so it's got to the point where Ellie's in a panic where she can't do this without Joel. And it's true because, for one, she does not know how United States is mapped out. And even if she pulled out that map, she wouldn't know where to go exactly, because it's like you're looking at a piece of paper, but you don't know what you'd be looking at in real life, like in front of you. And so there's this desperate Ellie who desperately wants Joel to be okay and not know what to do at the current moment. And so there's that. That's the end of the episode. And I think it's okay to talk about what's coming up, because we're not going to get a continuation of what happened with today's episode, just because they're going to go with a flashback where Ellie's in a military school. This is before her bite. And so she finally meets up with her friend, which was also part of the military school. A little bit of spoilers, sorry. But this is the part where she sneaks in the mall. This is basically where I was wondering where they were going to bring this in, because in the game, the story was a separate content from the actual full story. And so this is supposed to take part in the game where Ellie has a flashback while Joel is, not doing so great because of the stab wound. And so you go through these memories of her, the day she got bitten. And so we won't get to know what happens to Joel just next. But after this next Sunday's episode, it will go back to that. Or maybe it will be in that same Sunday, because who knows, how long it'll go. Well, how long they'll extend this episode. Maybe it'll go half of the episode where her flashback, and it'll pan out to what is happening with them right now with Joel and Ellie. Because the next part will be, well, they'll face a creepy villain, and I hope it goes through some action, because Joel does some things in order to get information where Ellie is, and Ellie's dealing with this evil villain, this very creepy villain, and I hope it goes out the way same sort of similar of how the game went out about with it. Because sadly enough, there wasn't any action happening in the show when Joel finally meets up with Tommy, and I guess it's some way it worked out in the game, because you can't have a full dialogue happening during the game. There has to be some action so you can be entertained and pressing buttons with your controller. And so I guess in the show they just decide to cut that, no action from any raiders invading Jackson, just some moments with Tommy and Joel. And so yeah, there's that. That's the end of this review, and if you guys like it, please leave a like in the video. It'll help me a lot. And don't forget to subscribe for any future videos and any streams that I'll be doing. Hopefully tonight I'll do a little bit of streaming, but who knows? Just because I'm recording at 10 p.m. right now, and who knows when I'll finish from editing. But as always, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.